absolutely fine and respectable. So great. Let's get cracking. Regan, I'm really, really excited. So over to you and let us know what you have.
Thank you, Ricardo. Look, we use the word communities here, LinkedIn communities. We're not using the word groups. Now, what's the difference between a group and a community? I'm not going to, debate that, but the key word here is community, which the success of this comes down to community management. And I think that is what 99.99% of the 3 million LinkedIn groups don't have. So keyword community, LinkedIn community. So throughout this, I could have interchanged the word LinkedIn group and community, but what I always mean is community with community management. Now, tangible outcomes and tangible and value that you get from a well-run, well-engaged, lots of member type community. There's two key tangible outcomes that you can track back to your community. Let's take event promotion. Event promotion, what you've got is let's say you've got 2,000 community members. How many of those community members attended your event? Very tangible. You can go back and say, right, from this many members, we had this many attendees. Similarly with B2B and demand generation, with social selling, how many of our community members became leads? Very, very, very tangible. So those two are probably the most tangible kind of outcomes that you will get from a well-run kind of LinkedIn community. Now, the others are kind of also valuable. One of the great things you can do within a community, and I'll go into this in detail later, you've always got a community manager. But in B2B terms, it's always great to also have a thought leader. So someone in your company who's at that thought leader status, the community manager can kind of create a podium for that particular individual. So a well-run community is great for thought leadership. I've got brand building in there, but one of the things I'll come to later, you don't want to make this community about your brand. In due course, once you've got an established, engaged community, it's fine to kind of up the ante as far as the brand's concerned, but you certainly don't want to come out with a branded community. Content marketing and target market insights, those two kind of go hand in hand. You've got your target personas in a community. You put out content. Are they engaging with it? No, they're not. Okay, that content isn't really working. There's lots of ways that you can get insight from your community members within the group. You run a poll, which is a new feature that LinkedIn have brought in. You run a poll. Polls are very easy to engage with. You can market test your target personas within a group.
And then I think Regan, on one element, I think, and we can see clearly from the people that in the audience, they say that about 70% of the audience already has a community. So we're all kind of clear in the elements of, okay, the benefits of it. One of the key fundamental things that I've seen in my history is that many companies like to call their community based on their brand, or they like to call their community based on their event. And that is, as I understand it from you, like is one of the first mistakes, or do not go areas within community building, right?
Correct. And you can kind of judge that, if your community name doesn't have it, and if it has it, what is your invitation to join ratio? A potential member is going to be much more likely to join a community that is brand neutral. If I'm going to join a branded community, I'm going to be sold to. In due course, once you get to a critical mass, critical membership, you've got an engaged environment, it's all right to bring in the branding, powered by, supported by, but right. you need to focus, on your audience and their motivations, not yourself.
Cool. And I think, Ricardo, let's just kind of go into the real meat of it. And I think the fundamental thing, I think the basis of when you opened the conversation right now and said, okay, LinkedIn communities. It might as well be on wherever you want them to have. You know, a well-run community is fundamentally based around some successful building blocks. So one is the management of the community, and I know that you're going to share, you're going to go more into detail about it, because we were talking about the iceberg model. Then everyone thinks that running a community is just about posting stuff and responding to commentary, but that's actually a very, very small part of the process. So, and then, but definitely we're going to touch on that. So what would you say? You know, you've got this kind of area here. You've got this model where you have like the successful community building blocks. Can you talk us through around that, and then we can then delve into the specific of management and start kind of going into it. I'm really desperate to start asking so many questions.
No trolling, please. Look, so we're using, you know, we're saying successful community building blocks. So this doesn't necessarily have to be a LinkedIn community. You know, it could, you know, as you said earlier, it could be an online community. It could be a forum outside any social network. It could be a Facebook group, dare I say it. There's lots of reasons why, you know, to get kind of tangible ROI on things like social selling and event marketing, LinkedIn is better than Facebook, but I'm sure we've discussed that later. But there's four critical building blocks. And, you know, sometimes I want to say one's more important than another, but it's not true. You know, these four need to work together. You get one of them wrong and your community potential, you know, is not going to be fulfilled. But, you know, as we said earlier, the first thing is positioning the theme, the description, the name of your community. It's absolutely imperative to approach this selflessly. It's not about me, it's about the members. You know, so if you've done target persona research, you'll understand what your target persona's motivations are. So you want to form a description and position the community around your target members' deep professional interests, their aspirations, their challenges. You want to create a destination where they'll come in and network with their peers and where they'll learn, et cetera, et cetera. So, you know, the worst thing you can do is make it about yourself. Initially you think brand neutral. In due course, we can change that slightly. And, you know, how you know you got your positioning right or wrong, going back to the point earlier, you know, you look at, if I invite 500 people to join my community, you know, how many actually join it? You know, if 25 to 40, 50%, if you're lucky, join your community, your positioning is probably working. So you've got it right. If, you know, under 10%, you know, invite to join ratio, your positioning is off. And, you know, I mean, over the years, I've been forced by a client, so no names. They've said, look, we want to call it this. This is how we want to position it. And I'm like, this is going to be a disaster. I'm going to be pushing water uphill to get people to join it, because their perception will be, I'm going to join a group or a community that's not for me, it's for them. So selflessly positioning.
And then I think one of those elements, to put it on the context of some of the people in the audience, that they run events, that they run training programs, that they run membership propositions. And again, this is something that has to do as well, like even how you name your community. You're not going to name your community about your event. You're going to name your community is about the industry. So we're talking about event marketing community, or the event marketing place, or it's also keyword friendly, right? We have to use the same basic principles of SEO, actually, for argument's sake, right?
Yes, indeed you do. Indeed you do. I mean, you don't really see people joining groups or communities until you've got a certain number, you know. So, but you're right. You know, people are kind of, you know, are there any groups? Yeah, and they are searching using keywords. So you're right. But you know, that's picked up on the description anyway. So, yeah.
And Regan, now that you said, what is that magic number then? So many people here will have communities. So I guess question number one, and I might be interjecting here from something that we might be covering, but we might as well deal with it. What is the right number? When you say hitting certain number, what is the number initially when you're talking about member growth that you want to be looking at as a decent number to start with, and at what point in time they will begin doing that?
Yeah, look, so I mean, the magic number when you'll start seeing organic joiners, which mean you're not actually out there, hustling for to recruit new members, is 10,000. Once you hit 10,000, you can almost stop being proactively to recruit members. They'll come organically. And you can imagine inviting someone to a community with 50 people in it. They're like, well, it's not really a community. It's just like a, big family. So the magic numbers, the first critical mass is around the 1,500, 2,000 mark. Okay. And what you'll see is, again, talking about kind of invite to join ratio, when a community gets to 1,500, someone sees that number and goes, oh yeah, okay, I want to get in there. Fear of missing out. But when you're inviting someone to join a community and there's like 15 of you, much harder.
Okay. So that's an interesting thing. So first milestone. So if I am understanding this right, Regan, so a decent number of 10,000 member community, then you're going to have to, basically, you don't really have to start worrying too much about proactively growing it, because then that's critical mass, so that people find it, people talk about it, etc., etc. So then we look at a lot about proactive community management, as you mentioned it there. The first milestone, if I am starting an online community from scratch, or if I'm getting a group of people getting together, the first milestone, 1,500 to 2,000 mark. Okay. Yeah. Is that right? Yeah. Great. Yes. Look, excellent.
There's one exception to this, and okay, I've worked on a couple of communities over the years where they were just so well positioned that they were just seen to the audience. Amazing. So organic growth came very, very early. 6-7 weeks ago, we started a virtual event community. 1,600 members. 6 weeks, hardly any growth tactics, because it's so well positioned. But the magic number is 1,500 to 2,000.
Okay, that's very interesting. And by the way, to everyone in the audience, I have asked Regan that if it's okay, we wanted to see some real examples of communities. And then, interestingly, I mean, Regan has built many communities. They successfully run 2 or 3 communities for the events industry professionals alone from the social effect, and they run various successful online communities for their clients. And then, Regan, if you guys are interested in seeing some real live examples, we're going to dissect some of those post webinar. If we have enough people kind of keen to understand and seeing how it's done, after the webinar is ended, we're going to have like an after-hour session so we can kind of visualize it, because it's very interesting. Because let's just go into the element, Regan. And I posted something on social today based on our conversations, was about the iceberg. Should we talk about the iceberg, or there's anything else that we want to kind of cover on this particular slide?
Oh, look. I mean, these are the 4 building blocks, so they're all critical. So let's just keep on with this slide.
Yeah, because I think this is absolutely fundamental, Regan, and I love when you've explained this to me, because the reality is that most of the professionals out there that are either A, thinking about launching communities, or B, planning on hiring someone to manage their communities, they think that it's all about the tip of the iceberg. Tell us a little bit more about this.
Right. So how much time do you need to invest in building a successful community? And look, this is a guide, and they kind of fluctuate at different points and different maturity stages of your community. But roughly that's around 11.5, 12 hours. Early on, the first 3 months, maybe it's more. You wouldn't want it to be less. But, we use the iceberg analogy because, above the waterline, that's what you see in a community. So you come to a LinkedIn group and go, that's crap. Or you come to you go to a LinkedIn group and you go, that's crap. You come to a LinkedIn community and go, wow, that's awesome. But, it's awesome because of what is going on below the waterline, under that particular iceberg. And, community growth is probably getting members into your community is probably the most time consuming, and it's the most heavy lifting. And so what we've always done is we've always set a kind of a target. We want to grow a community nice and steadily, not too fast, not too slow, keep it consistent. We've grown Microsoft communities at 900 a month. The ideal number is around the 200 a month. So there's multiple tactics, to grow your community. So look, let's say you start a community, a LinkedIn community. The first thing you want to do, as far as the kind of recruitment phase, is what's your first level network like? What are your team's network like? I mean, what's your company network like? So the first thing you want to do is you want to invite existing first level connections to join. Really, really simple. In a LinkedIn group, it's got a function, invite connections, and literally you click on that button, your first level connections come up, and you can invite. So you spread that out, amongst your team, amongst your company. So you get the first run of people coming in. They kind of know you, they trust you a little bit. So you get this base based on your first level connections.
Good. Ricardo, just to be clear for the audience in place, because we're talking about the community management, which is kind of what is about the surface. But now we're kind of building as well the growth, because exactly, okay, I want to set my community and there's a growth. And I think which kind of forms the basis of the debate that you and I were having offline, and I want to bring that online, which is about, okay, are really LinkedIn groups the place where you want to build a community? And then I think that is kind of one of the first fundamental thing. And obviously the answer from your side is yes, and then you're going to explain a little bit more. And the first point is because having a group on LinkedIn is going to allow you to do what you've just said, invite your first line of connection. So if your business, your event, or wherever company you work for, the first things that you launch your community, the first stage is invite your first line of connections. Let's say compile all the connections that you as a business have and invite them one-to-one to join the community, right? That's what I'm understanding.
Yeah, absolutely. The thing about LinkedIn communities over Facebook is there's a detailed business profile sitting on LinkedIn. You can look at a LinkedIn profile and go, this is the ideal community member. What are you going to do on Facebook, a Facebook group? You just have a look at their cat, their wife, their family. What do they do? I mean, LinkedIn is the best B2B database in the world, hands down. Right. So you've got that database. So identifying the people you want to invite to your community on LinkedIn is easy. So you can identify them. Then it's getting them in. So as you say, the first technique, is easy. Invite your network. After that, you've got to be proactive. And to hit a target like 200 a month, month in, month out, means you really need to kind of focus on, multiple tactics. So one of the great things about being a community manager, if I've got a LinkedIn profile saying community manager, I'm a neutral dude. I'm neutral. If I've got a profile saying sales or business development or marketing, someone's going to be going, do I want to connect with someone? So one of the very proactive methods that we'll use, a community manager will go out and connect with potential community members, and once I've connected, they will invite them to join. And so as a community management profile, having a community manager profile, your connection success rate is typically 30 to 50%. If you are a kind of salesman connecting with prospects, your connection rate isn't very high. So a proactive method, community manager goes out there and connects and invites. Now, okay. some of the cool functionality that's just come back. So 5 years ago, LinkedIn had a bit of functionality that if you and I were in the same LinkedIn group, I could invite you. I could communicate with you. So 5 years ago, you had to opt out to receiving messages from fellow group members. So let's say I wanted to grow an HR community. What I would do is I would join all the other HR LinkedIn groups, and I could actually go into them and poach members out of their groups to come and join mine. It's well-positioned, community manager, so you could poach out of other groups. Now, LinkedIn killed that functionality 5 years ago because a lot of spammers were using it.
Right.
Well, LinkedIn take away a lot of functionality, and in groups, they have been bringing it back and back and back. a month ago, LinkedIn brought back that functionality. So, you know, another very proactive method that you would use to grow your community, you join competing communities and you can message members in those groups to join your community. Now, one of the other cool things about that is the best members are the members that are going to engage. So jump onto a competing LinkedIn group, look at who's engaging, and then message them with a very personalized message saying, hey, I see you're engaged in this group. We've got a better one. We've got a community. Come and join that. So you're not only recruiting, members, you're recruiting engaged members.
Right.
We've used in-mails, paid in-mails, kind of aren't too expensive if you do them well. You put a kind of, a benchmark, what's a member worth? But you want to have 4 or 5 different tactics and, use all 4 or 5 of them the whole time. And then you will hit the 200 to 300 mark per month.
That's really interesting, Riga. And I think this is kind of the fundamental. And then I know that we're going to have these people in the audience saying, hang on, but why are you going to go, are those kind of good tactics to go on someone else's LinkedIn group and then start kind of poaching people to come and join your group and everything? And I'm sure that you have an answer, but my answer to that would be, well, at the end of the day, aren't you going to try to poach your competitors' clients and using whatever means to get them to your board? So I think it's a very fair tactic. But what would you say to someone and say, but hang on, what is it that going to other LinkedIn groups and poaching people? What would you say to that? Regan, hello. Hello, give me a quick second. Claudia, can you say? Hello, please, someone in the panel, can you let me know if you're hearing me, please? Okay, so people are hearing me, so great. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Regan. So we've lost Regan for a moment. So let's just hope that he's able to log back in. But again, I think what Regan was saying, and then I think many people are saying, okay, the big key thing, and this is, by the way, I was a reluctant person to steer people going to the LinkedIn groups creation or using the tools available to them. But the reality, the big fundamental piece that I think I wanted to highlight is the LinkedIn group. It's just predominantly about the functionality that is available to you as a business to engage with the wider audience within LinkedIn. Okay, very important, because I think a lot of people then go launch their community, they'll send emails out to their own databases, to their event participants and people like that, and then they will basically, that's all that they will do. But then remember, you have the ability, if you join the link, and I think what is very clear from Regan's word is that if you are a member of a LinkedIn group, not yours, if you are a member of a LinkedIn group that is not yours, you can go and invite them to come to another event. And I know that then we had a member of the audience, that Wade, that said, "Oh, if I get a LinkedIn invitation, I wouldn't join it." And then that's something that we can just basically discuss later. But very clear, important. The LinkedIn groups functionality for engagement is SHIT, yeah, but is the functionality that allows you to have on the back end for you to grow it, for you to bring in and to reel these people in. So Regan, we got you back on board.
I was so mortified about that question. I just couldn't slam my computer down. no idea.
You're not going to run away from the tough questions, Regan, because I'm going to ask those tough questions, which I think is about, okay, the LinkedIn group, okay, oh my God. And I was just kind of clarifying until you kind of log back on, that I was just basically saying the key element of the LinkedIn group functionality for your community is that you have actually functionality available to you to do the thing. So basically everything that is underneath, what lies underneath the iceberg, which is what many people don't do. Yeah. And I have clients saying to me, Ricardo, I've got clients saying to me, Ricardo, I've got 25,000 people in a LinkedIn community. What should I do? And I'm like, okay, those guys that are here today, and I know that we've got some of you here. Please remember, it's about what is at the bottom of the iceberg. So I'm going to repeat that for you guys: is invite your own connections. Yes, through LinkedIn, through your emails and everything, but be proactively. The community manager needs to be proactively connecting with people on LinkedIn, on other groups. You're looking at competing LinkedIn groups. You're looking at sending perhaps some emails to get them to invite to join the community or to join the group, etc., etc. Over to you, Regan. So anything else that we can hear about this?
Look, there's one more kind of tactic which we're using more and more, and I mean, with LinkedIn hashtags. So, here's a prime example. A lot of people are posting content with hashtags, and let's say your community aligns with that particular hashtag. So, virtual events, hashtag virtual events, it's all over the place. We will go into follow that hashtag. If someone posts, there's quite a lot of engagement around a bit of content, we'll go, hey, we don't want to hijack this post, but there's a new LinkedIn community all about virtual events. Why don't you check it out? And, if you've got posts with a lot of comments on it, following that hashtag, following that technique, you'll pick up 20% of the commenters in the group, in the community. So that's another tactic that should be used often.
And then I think this is very, very interesting and fundamental. I mean, what I really want the audience to understand is that, and I'm sorry to pick so much on it, but I think for the audience here that I know many of you guys, they're like the tip of the iceberg. If you look at it in comparison from a community manager, they should be spending 1.5 hours per week, roughly, engaging with the community. But if you look at the amount of time that they need to be actively and proactively working, we're talking about 5, probably about 8 hours additional to doing this proactive engagement. And then I think that is absolutely fundamental. And I think I get a lot of invitations to participate in some kind of groups and in some sort of discussions. And I think just to tap onto some of the questions, I don't necessarily engage with all of them because I need to know that it is worth my time or it is worth because I mean, people say that I am a LinkedIn extrovert. And so I get invitations precisely from people that are in other groups and say, hey, do you mind coming to my group and have a conversation there? Do you want? Because you know that you're going to bring certain audiences. So you also need to be looking out for all those LinkedIn extroverts, of course, that are within your community that are important to bring, which I think, Regan, and I don't know, I'm still, why 200? And why not 500? Or why not 1,000 a week?
Yep. Look, good question. Because, a great community manager is building relationships with the community members. So when everyone joins, it's a personalized message. Hey, Ricardo, thanks for joining. I see you do this. See, this guy, fantastic. Look, could I get you to introduce yourself? So the community manager is building one-on-one relationships from the get-go. Over 200, you can't do that effectively.
Right.
So if a full-time community manager can be managing 3 LinkedIn groups or communities, that's kind of max.
Three communities. A community manager can manage 3 communities.
Full time. Yeah. I mean, in that iceberg, I think we've actually used the term community management team. So normally what we would do is we have a specialist team who's about growing communities. We've got community managers who will be about, content engagement, building one-on-one relationships, so we can split it up.
I see. Okay, so and then I think that is kind of element, and I've got some questions coming up here, and I want to bring some of them already because I think this is kind of important. I think, Daniele, you've asked about statistics, and and then how many group members are actively checking posts, and how many members. And I think part of the iceberg that you had was, okay, that is fundamentally where you need to tap into the reporting bit. You need to be knowing if you're doing your own posts as the owner of that community or that group, then you need to be managing what posts are getting the most engagement, getting the most views and everything. And you're able to track that on the groups, correct?
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Look, it's manual. Unfortunately, it's manual. And again,
Right.
talking about LinkedIn group functionality being ripped away, I mean, 5 years ago, when everyone goes LinkedIn groups were great, now they're not. LinkedIn started taking away functionality from groups. And there was amazing LinkedIn statistics. You could go into a group before you joined it and go, oh, look at the engagement, this many comments, this many posts, these are the members. They took that away. LinkedIn had an API where you get really good statistics from who's engaging, who's not. They took that away. So to look at statistics, what we do is, we've got a content calendar, and it's normally a kind of 1 month rolling content calendar. That's flexible. We can change it. But what we're doing at the end of the month or whenever it is, you look back and go, hey, this post worked. This one didn't. We bombed on that. No one cares about this. Let's focus on what was working. So you're recording things like how many comments you got, how many likes and stuff you got on a particular post, but it's all manual, and that's all kind of down under the iceberg, under the reporting component.
Yeah, and I've got some question from Maria that said, what if we don't have a brand ambassador to drive and motivate the community? And how difficult is it to start a community without a driver? I think the answer is already kind of been implicit in what we've discussed it, right? So the answer is impossible.
Impossible.
You better not do anything.
Impossible. But I think, that's the expectation of 99.99% of LinkedIn group owners.
Correct.
You just put it up, they'll come. We know that doesn't work.
Yeah, and I think, we've got another question from Soli, which is, what's the use of building a community? It's not for ulterior brand motives. Surely there must be a value in the community for member, but no one does this for nothing. At what point does one start proper brand communications? So I guess what I understand in Sally is that you build a community, you want to invest time with your community manager. For many of that is a salary, very likely a salary from someone that actually understands your audience, commands the topics within your audience. So that means, let's say, a salary or the equivalent of a full-time employee if they're hiring someone like BrightBull or the Social Effect to do that. Now, at what point in time can I sell my event? At what point in time can I tell them, I've got this amazing product, I've got this amazing demo, we're amazing at this product? How does that work?
Okay, events and demand generation are two different things, really.
Right.
For events, it's about volume. You really want to have, quite a lot of members. And look, if you got to a community in 3 months of 2,000, boom, invite them, individual invitations, promote it in the group, recommend the post. But what we do as far as social selling is concerned from a demand generation perspective is we talk about 3 months. So you want a member to join, and on month 4, the community manager's already had 3 or 4 interactions with that particular person. The person may or may not have responded or posted, because in social media terms we talk about the ratios between engagement and not. 1% of your members will be highly engaged, 9% will be semi-engaged, and 90% will be lurkers. So 90% of your audience won't engage. So, again, this comes down to, the more members you got, the higher percentages of, active and semi-active members. But as far as social selling is concerned, the community manager has had 2 or 3 interactions with that particular individual. In month 4, we will start doing a lead generation program, on that particular individual. And, so we've got a nurturing process. And look, one of the killer methods, and this is basically how I established the social effect. I went out for a lunch somewhere. Some guy in London goes to me, I've got an agency, social media, we don't do it. There's no ROI in it. I was like, well, actually, I tell you what, there is ROI in it. And I went to LinkedIn groups. So here's how we did it. And this is the first time we went, oh, this actually works. the community manager has had interactions with a potential prospect, 2 or 3. Month 4, the community manager goes, hey, Ricardo, I was talking to Peter about what you do at this particular company. I think it'd be great to connect you two for a conversation. I just for a chat. Would that be okay? So in social media terms, that's called a bridge. So you got a bridge. So the community manager then bridges the relationship between, prospect and community owner, put them together. And when we first ran that, we had 50% of the members saying, more than happy to speak to this particular individual. So the answer is, it's a process, and typically after 3 months, you'll start that. Now, that's below the iceberg. It's not on top. No one's seeing that. It's below the iceberg. That's what all the magic is, below.
Yeah, and then I think there's a big fundamental. Let's remember that about 60% of the audience, the majority of the audience on this session today are from a B2B organization, from a B2B tech. So they're probably more like into the demand generation type of thing. And, from what B2B organizations are very good at the demand generation. They're very good at the, inbound selling and, all that sort of stuff. Event organizers and companies that promote events and everything are not that great at it. That's kind of why they are finding most of the times very difficult to understand. That's why we might have some questions as to, can we just have the community group there and just broadcast and do all that stuff? And I think that's kind of absolutely fundamentally wrong. So, and I just want to reiterate, for me, what I used to think about is, because most of the companies that I used to have conversations with, they were wanting to have engagement in the community, et cetera, et cetera. But I think the element of below the iceberg is the point that they have not necessarily been capitalizing on. And that's kind of why they're having these communities with 2,000, or groups with 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 10,000 people dead, not doing anything. And I think that is kind of a fundamental difference. The one-to-one direct messaging below the iceberg.
Yeah.
Now, Regan, one thing that I think is fundamentally important, and I want to touch on that, which is, you have a community wherever you have them, that basically platform agnostic, whether you're using LinkedIn, Facebook groups, your own program, your own website, etc. This is what happens. And this is clear. Many people don't understand this. 1% of your community is going to be highly engaged. 9% are going to be doing some bits. You called it selling or
no, semi-active.
Semi-active, and 90% are just literally observing. That's the fundamental element. You look at the people that are engaging, but there's also a lot of individuals that you can tap into to bridge that gap. Now, tell us about the tier ones, because I think this is critical. When you guys are launching your own community in whatever platform, we're talking about 3 tiers of individuals that you need to bring in order to do your selling, in order to facilitate that bridge. Talk to us a lot about the 3 tiers of members.
Yeah, so let's say we've got a growth target of 200 members a month. What we do is we'll break that into 3 tiers. Tier 1 would be, members who join from the right target company, right job titles, right seniority. They're tier 1. They are your ideal prospects. They are decision makers. Tier 2s, and this is really about B2B, or it's about exhibition sales for events. Tier 2s would be people from the right company, not the right job title. So they would be kind of decision influencers maybe, but tier 1s are perfect. Tier 2s, right target account. Tier 3s are consultants. Tier 3s are people in the industry who really want to be vocal. People who, kind of need to get out there to kind of promote themselves. Even though we'll be on an iron fist, no, you can't post that, self-promotion. So by combining those 3 tiers, you've got a highly engaged audience, which will stimulate the tier 2s to do more interaction. And the tier 1s, who from a B2B social selling perspective, you're going after.
Right. So the fundamental thing is, because everyone says, okay, LinkedIn groups, they are a place for spammers, there are a place for broadcasters, there are a place for everyone. And LinkedIn groups are packed and full of them. So, but I think, so what I'm hearing is, those are the guys that you can convert from, call it a spammer and an annoying person into an advocate, right?
Yeah.
How do you go about that?
Yeah. So, I mean, the community manager, I go around saying we moderate with an iron fist, but it's not really the case. I mean, obviously, if you're proactively community managing, if someone posts something that is, self-promoting or spammy, if you like, the community manager deletes it, obviously, communicates with that individual and go, hey, this is self-promotion. Here's the community guidelines. It's a don't do it, please. But, instead of just like kind of, cutting them off at the knees, they then say, hey, look, if you want to get engagement in this particular community, change tact. Instead of posting something that's self-promoting, post a question, a question which would cover the challenges your product overcome. So what we'll try and do, we'll give someone 3 warnings, and if they keep on doing it, boom, they're out and they're blocked and they won't come back. But quite often, look, 1 out of 3, you take some time, community manager communicates with that individual and say, hey, look, self-promotion doesn't work in LinkedIn groups. It's a waste of time. Just don't do it. But I tell you what, if you post something, a few questions, paraphrase something, we'll get engagement for you. So we try and moderate fairly, get rid of the spammers, self-promotion, try and turn them into, kind of active members.
Try to turn them into an active members. The tier 2, which are the guys that are within your target accounts, probably not as senior, and this might be applicable for event organizers. This might be applicable for exhibition selling or sponsorship selling. But by the way, LinkedIn groups, those promoters, those broadcasters are all of them most likely coming from companies that are trying to get some selling of some sort of product and service. And those are the ones that I probably, again, turning those into advocates and everything will help bridge sales communications there from the sponsorship point of view or that angle. So the tier 2 are the ones that obviously are going to help influence that at the conversation, right? And
Correct.
how do you engage the 90% that are just literally observing?
Well, you try to a point and then you go, there's no point trying, so, I mean, social community management is really interesting. It's quite a big thing to come in and actually, if you're slightly introverted, you don't say the wrong thing, to come in and actually comment on a particular post, it's quite a big leap. So, now LinkedIn have brought back LinkedIn polls. So you can do polls in groups. From a social media perspective, trying to get people engaging. Polls are awesome. They drop it, they've brought it back. And I say it again, there's so much more functionality coming back into groups that they'll get back to where they were 5 years ago. But you keep on trying. The community manager goes, hey, Ricardo, introduce yourself. You don't. Okay. You try 1 more time, 2 more times. Ricardo's not responding. Right. Okay, let's stop harassing Ricardo with kind of, to try and get him to engage. Things like recommending a post, which puts a group post into your notifications, is quite a passive way to get people back into the community without one-on-one messaging them. So, but eventually you just got to resign yourself to the fact that these people don't want to kind of engage. It's a fact of life.
Okay, and I understand that kind of particular part of, but then that's kind of when you might again use some of these other members, or probably even via if you know that person is a member of your group. I personally, what I have done in the past is that I have used, let's say I have emailed my contacts on my database and saying, look, I am having this discussion on this group, or I'm having this discussion even on my personal profile, and then say, can you please offer a comment? Can you, because you can add value to this discussion. That is also very valid, right? Just to continue that engagement.
Yeah. So I mean, that's an incredible way. Let's say I've posted something about some technology that's quite complex. We will search the LinkedIn group members and see, has anyone got this technology, any experience? Can we go to them and say, hey, you're obviously an expert with this technology. we've got a conversation going here. Your insight would be invaluable. We all like to kind of, share our expertise, so, you just need to take your foot off the gas. You want to be very, very smart about how you get someone who hasn't historically engaged to come into a group. And a great way is you look at their LinkedIn profile, you look at the skills they've got, you look at what they're doing, their content that they've been engaging with, and you can find a nuance to bring them back.
Okay, that's kind of an interesting part. I've got some questions here, and then I'm kind of conscious that we've got about 5 minutes left, and many, many more questions are here to come. Just I wanted to be also clarified. If you guys want to stay after hours, after the hour, then we're very happy to continue answer the questions. And then if you have any specific ideas and everything on you want to see some examples on some communities that have kind of worked, and I think Regan can share some of those ideas. But this is kind of an element, Regan, about what is permissible, what is getting classified as spam and everything. So Tom, as a member of the group, is asking about, we're looking at the way that, in the way that we've promoted this event using LinkedIn posts and mentions to alert of the event, right? There are tactics when you are promoting that, when you tag people that you think you want them to come, you want them to attend. And so how do you do that? What is the fine balance without flooding your connections with the same message in a row? And then saying, does LinkedIn prevent the same post from being sent to connections continuously?
Yeah, look, great question. Going back, 5 years, and this is all about LinkedIn functionality, what you can and can't do. 5 years ago, you could communicate with anyone who was a fellow group member. They stopped that. And, subsequently to that, we're like, okay, how can we communicate with people without actually connecting with them? How can we show them that there's a group or a community that we'd like them to join? And we realize that you can actually tag people outside of your network. Look, it's a fine line. You can overdo it. You can be overzealous. Depends on the volume. But I tell you what, now that you can now communicate with a fellow group member, with no limits, that method will slowly die a death.
Right. And I just think many people are curious to learn, like, the tools that, for instance, that we used to promote this particular webinar, right? And I just kind of want to be very, very kind of open as well to say, like, for instance, we created because there's all the tools within LinkedIn that allow you to get or to resurface a product or an event in a particular way. So. And then we've emailed our internal database. We've created an event on LinkedIn, because that allows you also to invite your personal connections to invite that event. When someone accepts and clicks, I am attending this event, that helps with internal notifications. When you do your personal post, or some influencers kind of do their personal posts, then also that allows them to get visibility. And if you tag anyone that you're connected, or any tag, because I think, Regan, LinkedIn allows you to tag people in a post that probably you're not connected to. Is that correct?
Yeah, it does. It's a little known fact out of the bag.
And then what is the balance? Because sometimes I think that can go right or wrong, right?
Yeah, look, there's a very small minority who won't like it. Often people will go, "Hey, thanks for tagging me." Right. On the flip side, you might have that this is not cool, but you're talking a very, very, very low percentage. With GDPR coming in, when GDPR came in, LinkedIn changed a few things basically. Historically, before GDPR, if I tagged you, you'd actually get a message on your email that you've been tagged in a post. So look, it's a fine line. Fine.
Okay, so there's another question from Helga, which is saying, should you build a community under your own profile, or should you do it under a company or a LinkedIn group? What would be the benefit of that?
Yeah, okay, so you have to build it under your own profile. Unfortunately, you don't have a kind of corporate kind of group community management kind of profile to use. So you have to do it under your own profile. We've got community managers who are either brand neutral, so community manager of this particular community, so there's no actual brand associated to it. Very good in the early days when you want to be brand neutral to maximize, joiners and get the engagement. Or you have community managers who are working for, Fujitsu or, Panasonic or, whatever. Certainly it's about the neutrality. The more neutral you are, the better the engagement, the better the joiners will be, the better, et cetera, et cetera. So I hope that answers the question.
That's fine. And then there's another, and by the way, we have 1 minute, but we are, Regan, are you happy to stay a little bit longer, right? Answering these kind of questions that are coming through.
Yeah, sure.
Yep, good. There's kind of one, for instance, how much content do you need to have to set up on the community page before you start inviting people to join? And what are the visible must-haves that must be on the feed for them to see as they join?
Look, okay, probably 3 posts. I would start with, the best starting post is always an intro post. And, maybe, if you're doing 200 members a month, create a new intro post every month. So in that intro would be, come tell us a few things about yourself and what do you want to get out of this community. So when, so typically you'll get 20% of the community members introducing themselves. But what's gold about that is they're saying, I'm here because I want to learn this, or I am here because I want to do that. So you're getting content ideas. So intro post. And then maybe an article with a question, maybe isn't this article great? Maybe it's a video, something like that. You're not going to get very much engagement on that. And then one that we always like to start with, what are your top 3 challenges?
Okay.
So to answer the question, 3 posts. And then after that, as a community manager, you're controlling the ebb and flow. There's no point posting ridiculous amounts of content. So you just need to kind of feel what the members are like, so there's, I go for like 2 posts a week. But, sometimes if the community is absolutely bustling and there's lots of user generated content, then the community manager doesn't need to post anything. So it's just about you control the ebb and flow.
Right. And I think, Regan, what communities have you seen out there that are very successful or that are successfully run? I can basically I am a member of the event professionals group, which is run by Event MB, which is about 100,000 members. They have various subgroups, and I know that they have like probably about 6 to 7 community managers, because to manage a community of that size is pretty damn. Have you got any examples of communities that you think are well run, or that you can basically share with us what they might be? There's also another question there: if there is a marketplace for like-minded, industry-centric communities.
Oh, look, I tell you what, you could imagine probably the best community on LinkedIn, and it's not one of ours, is a LinkedIn community manager community with people who are just absolutely fascinated about LinkedIn groups. And, it is absolutely raucous, LinkedIn have actually started those themselves, and then people have piled in. Then LinkedIn have closed them because they become so raucous. So, the point about a great community, it's about how it's positioned, but the other thing about community is, what makes it great? Is it the engagement or the ROI that you're getting? So you can see a highly engaged community. Look, a lot of B2Bs like an engaged community. We manage 2 communities for partners, Fujitsu partners. So all they're trying to do is kind of create partner awareness. But there's engagement in that particular community, but it's awareness. No one's going in no one's going in to use them for like lead generation, demand generation. So a lot of the great communities, it's under the iceberg. If you want to see engaged communities, I've got a couple of examples, which I can,
Yeah, that would be great. Do you want to share? I mean, you want to share your screen? I think I can let you share. So everyone, in the meantime, while Regan is sharing or getting ready to share his screen, if you want to have a discussion with either Regan or myself about your communities or about your digital transformation program or anything around building, what is going to happen moving forward after all this, many companies doing the digital pivot, we'll invite to book a free assessment session with either myself or Regan. We're going to put Regan's contact details in the chat panel. We're going to have my contact details in the chat panel if you're interested in. If you have to log off, I really, really would like to thank you very much for joining us today. The questions that we did not ask live, we will basically aim to answer directly through to you. And I'll greatly, greatly appreciate it. So we're now in the kind of after hour session. So we're going to be looking at some sessions that Regan is going to share. Regan, are you able to share your screen? You want to share your screen?
It's saying host disabled attendee script.
Okay, so let me just enable that. Let me see. Okay, I think you're now able to do that, Regan.
Okay. Maybe while I'm doing that, why don't you show the ROI slides?
Okay, let me just kind of share mine.
Yeah. Thank you, Ricardo.
Okay. Where do we have the ROI? Where is it, the ROI? This one?
No. I think it was the yeah.
Is it the Salesforce.com or which one?
Yeah, Salesforce.com. These are leads generated from a community called the Enterprise Apps community. There's a couple of others in there. They're about right. Let me just do a screen share.
Oh, I think this is like this is the one like particular for events as well. Like, can we get attendance and can we get people attending our events?
Yeah. I mean, this is Women in Business, which is a kind of expo that ran last year, probably going to go virtual this year. We've got a LinkedIn community, 4,500. There's actually 2 communities. And that is the pre-registration number we got.
Amazing.
Yeah. Very, very tangible.
And now we have with the Massive Frankfurt.
Yeah. Mechanica. Look, I actually still can't share for some reason, Ricardo.
Let me just see. No, because I'm sharing. Let me stop my sharing, and then I think you now are able to do that.
Okay. Oh. Okay. This is the virtual event community that I mentioned, and as everyone was kind of pivoting down and, everyone's like social distancing and lockdown came, we could kind of see that, virtual events would be a thing. I looked at LinkedIn, there are a couple of virtual event groups, let's say, with not many members in it. So, we started this literally 6-7 weeks ago. Over this time, I'm just going to cruise down this community so you can see it from an engagement perspective. This first post here. Now, this first post can typify not what a great post is, because this is something where there's a question and there's an article. So if I want comments on this, I need to read that, click on the article, go to the article, read the article, come back, formulate my comment, and answer. On the scale of 1 to 10, that's a 7 in difficulty.
Mm-hmm.
But still 7 comments. This is a poll 5 days ago. 20 votes. That is kind of market insight quite well. All these. And I've got to say, we aren't. I'm the community manager on this. So I'm not really following, my own advice, this many hours, this many hours, this many hours. So this is because this community is well positioned for the now. But, most of these posts will have 1, 2, 3 comments, 4, 5 comments, 2 weeks ago, 3, 5. Now I'm just going to flip out of this now and show you some really cool functionality. I mean, this is why LinkedIn groups are great for social selling and great for, you know, promoting an event. Oh, this is just one post. You know, introduction post, 51 comments. That was a month ago. And what's great about this, everyone is saying why they are joining, what they want to learn. So a good community manager, not necessarily me, would take those learnings and put it into a content calendar. But what is cool functionality about a LinkedIn group that you can't direct message people on a Facebook group. It's totally uncool. No, go around in circles. But I'm just going into the kind of the back end, if you like, of LinkedIn groups. You know, here, you know, you can message any member, you know, as many times as you like. You don't want to overdo it. You don't want to spam. But if the message is coming from a community manager, hey, I've got something really insightful, you know, would you, you know, like to engage, comment? This is the functionality that is amazing. I mean, this is like having, let's say I'm selling a virtual event platform. This is like having, you know, 1,619, you know, virtual event prospects as first level connections gained in 6 weeks. Right. Okay.
And then I think one aspect there, Regan, was that, because I think there was one question from someone that said, with 2,000 or 10,000 members, how do you go through all of them to find the experts on specific topics? And I think, the experts on specific topics will make themselves known to you because they would likely going to be engaging. But also you would have seen that in that members group, you are able to search by job title, search by country, search by all those individuals. And also nothing really stops you from seeing how engaged they are. Might not be in your community, but might be elsewhere, right?
Yeah. So look, the search functionality within the group that I just showed you previously isn't amazing, but there's an amazing search filter in Sales Navigator where you can search for groups.
Right.
So you search for the group, and then you can start, you know, really pinpointing, really pinpointing individual members. But this is okay. So this is the virtual event community I just showed you. 1,500 members. They're all in a Sales Navigator search. This is a really interesting stat. Out of this 1,500 members here, 1,000 engaged on LinkedIn over the last 30 days. So, you know, it's phenomenal. 66% of those members have either liked, commented, or posted on LinkedIn over the last 30 days.
And that is LinkedIn, not on the group, right?
Yeah, it's on LinkedIn. Absolutely.
Not on the group. And that's, so again, I guess that person that asked the question about with 2,000, 10,000 members, that is your question. That is the answer. 1,000 people. And are you able to know who are those guys, those 1,000, if you click on there?
Yeah, you are. So look, I tell you what, I mean, one of the growth tactics that I would implement, you know, I would go into LinkedIn, I'd do a LinkedIn Sales Navigator search, and I would look at who's posted over the last 30 days. Now, the people that come up here, these are people who are socially outward. So if I recruit those kind of people, I'll get more engagement in my community. You know, so, you know, sometimes I'll put up a search like this, and that number will be less than 10%. And you're going, this isn't going to work. CIOs, prime example, they aren't very active on LinkedIn. Right. You know, a CIO LinkedIn community, not really going to work. But look, I've got another example of an event community that we've just started. It was literally 6 weeks ago.
And what is it? Do you know that?
Yeah. Okay. It's called the Spacecom Expo.
Right.
So this is going to be a commercial space trade show that's going to be on in Farnborough. At the moment, the date's February, March, not quite sure. But it's, you know, I think it's 6 weeks, maybe it's 2 months. So we're kind of around that target of 200 a month.
Right.
Now, you know, the 17 minutes ago, no engagement. But look, what you've got when you start a community, the first few months are always difficult. They're always difficult. So, you know, you're making an assumption. What kind of content do people want to listen to, talk, engage around? So, you know, I'm coming to a community to show you that it's not all roses. It's not all kind of lots of engagement, but there are pointers on here that are pretty good. You know, okay, minimal amounts of engagement, minimal amounts of engagement. But you scroll down a couple of weeks, look, classic case of this kind of post won't get engagement. Someone needs to read it, click back, come back. But there's a post down here I saw the other day. So it's 11 comments. So this, so that's a week ago, 11 comments. This is a 6-7 week old community, and this is a classic. This is a very well positioned, conversation. They're talking about, a lot of space technology requires NDAs. How much can you share? Interesting.
Regan, just one element. What is a good number of engagement? Now, because again, a lot of stuff on LinkedIn is about likes and comments. What is good? What is not good? Or, again, obviously good would be the most amount of comments that you can get, but what is an okay level of engagement in a group or in a post that is done in a group?
Yeah, look, typically you put scores for different types of things. For a user-generated post, so, this particular person has posted something, you would give that a 5. If for a comment, a 3. For a like, a 1. So, then you're adding those up. And really, it's about dividing that with the number of members to come up with an engagement score, basically. But look, 19 comments on this post. That again is a week ago. And the great thing about this is the person who's posted it isn't the community manager. If I analyze this post, you can see there's a couple of questions which we all like. The community manager has obviously gone out to the members to say, hey, it'd be great to get your commentary on this. That's a pretty engaged post 2 weeks ago.
Right.
But, okay, more, another example here. Now, I think this example, if it's correct, I think it's a Fujitsu partner community. No, this is actually SAP. I'm going to show you so we've absolutely defied our own advice. Do not go heavy on the branding,
Right.
And I have to admit that when we first, this is an SAP community for people within, kind of big e-commerce. I have to admit, we were analyzing the invitation to join ratios when we started, and they were terrible.
Right.
So we were going, look, should we not have that in it? Is that stopping someone? Because it's clearly going to be for SAP. And then what we did is we actually looked at the group description, and we split test 2 descriptions that we thought would kind of better, would increase the, invite to join ratios. And I put one forward, our copywriter put another one forward. We had a competition and I lost. He said, my copy is better than yours, Regan. Okay, so another one. And, this is a Fujitsu community for partners. Mm-hmm. Again, it's about engaging their partner network. This is classic in your face brand name, but it's for channel partners. So they want to stimulate their partnership. So they want, when their channel partner goes out onto the market, onto the road or, onto Zoom to talk to a potential prospect, you want them to think Fujitsu. So this community is bringing together, Fujitsu partners just for Fujitsu awareness. Three days ago, 36 votes, something that's kind of very branded. But look,
because it's all partners, so it's permissible to be fully on in your face branded. Yeah, and I think Regan, I wanted to ask a specific question now on the element, and I'm gonna basically let me just okay. So I just really wanted to ask kind of one specific question. I guess I'm conscious of your time, and I'm already grateful with expanding. So Facebook groups versus LinkedIn groups. What's the view? What's the answer? And I guess obviously the ideal answer would be like, okay, if you have the capacity, do both, right? But what's on that debate? Facebook versus LinkedIn. What's your thoughts?
More engagement on Facebook. more engagement on Facebook. If it's engagement you're looking for, Facebook has the edge. If it's return on investment, if it's return on your time, it's got to be LinkedIn. It's got to be LinkedIn. You can't go to your 3,000 Facebook Facebook group members and direct message them about coming to an event. You can't put them into a nurturing program knowing exactly that they're a tier one, and then kind of put them into some kind of demand generation process. So, from an engagement perspective, I mean, I love Facebook. I really do love Facebook. It's a great platform. We also find a lot of B2B tech clients are like, Facebook? No way.
Right.
That's for friends and family. And I'm often going, well, it's not actually. That's where your tier ones are spending more time.
Right.
So be on that particular platform. But from a ROI, return on time place, I've got to say it's LinkedIn all over.
I think from my point of view, I sit in the same perspective. I think the element where I've changed my perception is, to me again, and I will always recall the element of the iceberg, is that many are always thinking about the tip of the iceberg, but it's just what lies underneath. Community, to me, the big summary is community management is absolutely fundamental. It is required, compulsory. Someone that is kind of spending that time engaging with those posts. Sometimes the person that is doing the community management, it's very likely going to be writing blogs on your website. It's going to be writing the content. It's going to be kind of formulating those questionnaires. There's going to be the person hosting webinars, et cetera, that is going to be there. So community management, a LinkedIn group, Facebook group, whatever group you want to call it, you need to have that community manager. You cannot have someone part-time managing that community if you really want to grow it in the way that you want it, right?
Correct.
What would be the top 3 takeaways that you will leave everyone attending or watching this webinar at some point in the future on building a community from scratch on LinkedIn?
Positioning, number one. I don't want to give it number one because there should be like 3 even things, right. But positioning, absolutely imperative. Right. Proactive community management, day in, day out, and right. Continued growth. ROI will come if you get those 3 things right.
And finally, I guess this is communities is in the long game, right?
It's the long game.
No short term, no short-termism. So you have to be in it for at least, how long do you need to stick within a program like this in order to start seeing some results?
Well, as I said earlier, after 3 months on a demand generation B2B tech community, we would start that process to turn them into prospects. Look, right. We've got communities we've been running for 8 years. 8 years.
Wow.
To kill those communities would be like, I'm not going to be as bolshy as a brand suicide, but right. To kill those communities, because community members have given themselves to that particular community, that particular brand. Right. And to go away is kind of like, what have you done? Yeah. You've taken this place away that I'm actually engaging with my peers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's pretty interesting. And I think with that, Regan, I just wanted to wrap up. Thank you to the good number of people, probably about kind of 90 people stayed after. And so thank you to all of those that have stayed until the end. I hope you would agree with me that this has been kind of extremely useful. I hope that you've gained as much value as we all. I mean, I personally gained a lot over the weeks and today itself. So Regan, thank you very much. If anyone wants to reach out to you, everyone wants to contact you, where should they go?
Yes. LinkedIn. Yeah? LinkedIn. I'm not on Snapchat. LinkedIn, please. /Regan. I'll see you there. Thank you, Ricardo.